The explosion tore through the silence of memory before the story even began, echoing like a warning that the past has claws. Captain Jonathan Hale of the United States Marine Corps never forgot that day in Helmand Province. The dust, the thunder, and the moment when life taught him how thin the line between survival and loss could be. Years had passed, yet every time his boots struck the pavement, every time he felt the weight of his uniform settle on his shoulders, and every time he heard the roar of aircraft overhead, that memory flashed like a dying flare. Little did he know that his past would return not through the battlefield, but through a simple, playful question he threw at a stranger. A question that would unravel everything he thought he had buried. It was at a charity event for veterans rehabilitation programs where the story truly began. The sun was sliding toward the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of gold and ember, and a soft breeze carried the mixed scent of fresh grass and barbecue smoke. Captain Hale walked among the crowd, nodding to familiar faces, offering supportive smiles to families who carried their own invisible scars. He had been invited as a guest speaker, but before stepping on stage, he wandered through the gathering to ease the tension building inside him. That's when he saw her, a woman standing beside the display of memorial boots, her fingers lightly touching one pair as though she were reading a story written in laces and dust. She wore no uniform, no obvious markers of service, yet there was something unmistakable in the stillness of her stance. It wasn't grief, but a kind of familiarity with pain. Curiosity nudged him closer. As he approached, she straightened, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, and looked at him with the calm confidence of someone who understood more than she let on. Captain Hale, trying to lighten the moment, smirked and said the same playful line he used on many veterans at gatherings. "So, what's your call sign?" It was harmless, just a teasing question meant to break the ice. But the answer struck him harder than a mortar blast. "Sticky Six," she said. The name hit him like a sudden blow to the chest. Sticky Six wasn't just a call sign. It was a legend, a ghost story whispered among deployed units, a name he had heard only twice in his life, both times wrapped in blood and uncertainty. That call sign belonged to a combat medic who was said to have crawled through an IED field on her belly to reach 6 wounded Marines trapped after an ambush. Nobody knew whether she made it out alive. Nobody even knew her real name. Sticky Six was a symbol of courage, a phantom hero whose story lived only in fragments passed between Marines trying to make sense of chaos. Captain Hale froze, his breath caught somewhere inside him, and the sound of the crowd faded into a distant murmur. The woman noticed the shift in his expression, but she remained steady, almost as if she expected this reaction. She mentioned, with quiet finality, that the name wasn't something she bragged about and rarely spoke aloud. She had left that part of her life behind, or tried to, but the battlefield had a way of embedding itself into your bones, making sure it never truly let go. The two of them walked away from the noise and found themselves beside the lake where the sun cast shimmering reflections onto the water. It was there, piece by piece, that she began sharing the fragments of her story. Sticky Six wasn't a nickname she chose. It was a name given to her during an event that nearly cost her everything. She described the night when a platoon had been pinned down, their medic incapacitated, and she, just a corpsman on temporary assignment, was the closest thing they had to hope. The field was littered with scattered metal and hidden explosives, each step a gamble against the unseen. She crawled for over 200 meters through mud mixed with fuel, shards, and blood to reach the wounded. Her uniform was soaked, clinging to her like a second skin, sticky with everything that made the battlefield hell. She treated the wounded under gunfire, dragging each Marine back to cover one excruciating inch at a time. All 6 lived. She barely did. Captain Hale listened, struck silent by how her voice remained steady despite recounting a night that would have shattered anyone else. He found himself studying her not with admiration, but with the rare recognition of a warrior who had carried weight heavier than metals. Her story cracked something inside him, something he thought he had long hardened. The explosions he had lived through were etched in his body, but the guilt, the people he couldn't save, those were etched deeper. And now, standing beside a woman who had survived her own nightmare, he felt the strange pull of connection, the kind formed not by words but by scars facing each other openly. Over the next weeks, Captain Hale found himself thinking often about her. the woman behind the call sign. They crossed paths again through veteran programs, and each meeting peeled back more layers from both of their pasts. She revealed how she struggled with survivor's guilt, how her nightmares had chased her into civilian life, how she once avoided crowded rooms because every loud noise threatened to drag her back into combat. In turn, Hale opened up about losing his closest friend to an explosive that ripped through their convoy, how he carried his friend's dog tags in his pocket every day, and how sometimes he still woke up feeling the weight of sand in his lungs. Their conversations became a refuge, not from pain, but from hiding it. They found something rare, someone who didn't flinch at the darkness, but instead offered quiet understanding. Slowly, something in Captain Hale began to change. For the first time in years, he felt the heaviness in his chest lift, replaced by a warmth that felt like healing. Sticky 6, too, found herself smiling more easily, laughing more openly, and beginning to believe that maybe life had not abandoned her after all. Their bond wasn't romance at first. It was survival recognizing survival. But healing is never a straight path. One evening, after a thunderstorm rolled through the city, Hale found her sitting on the steps outside the community center, trembling and pale. A car had backfired nearby, and the sudden crack had ripped her straight back into the battlefield. She told him that despite the years since her deployment, the fear still lived inside her like an echo she couldn't silence. Hale didn't try to tell her she was strong. She already knew strength better than anyone. Instead, he sat quietly beside her, letting the silence cradle the moment until her breathing eased. They stayed like that under the faint glow of streetlights, two souls holding each other's broken pieces without judgment. From that night onward, their connection deepened. They trained together, volunteered together, and talked about everything from loss to the possibility of hope. Sticky 6 began mentoring younger veterans, showing them that trauma didn't mean the end of life, but the beginning of a different one. Hale started speaking at events not from a script, but from his heart, telling stories of resilience he once kept locked inside. Together, they transformed their scars into something greater, a shared mission to remind others that surviving was not a burden, but a testament to strength. Months passed, and the charity planned another major gathering. This time, Sticky 6 was asked to speak publicly for the first time about her story. She hesitated, but with Hale standing beside her, she finally agreed. As the moment arrived, she stepped onto the stage before hundreds of veterans, families, and supporters. She breathed in, steadying herself, and then began speaking, not as a legend, not as a call sign, but as a survivor willing to share her truth. The audience felt every word, every tremble, every moment she fought to stay strong. When she finished, the entire room rose in a standing ovation that seemed to shake the air around her. In that moment, she realized she had reclaimed her story, not as something haunting her, but as something empowering others. Later that evening, as the sky turned dark and the lights shimmered across the field, Captain Hale approached her. He didn't need to say anything. They both knew how far they had come. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Two warriors, no longer hiding, but helping each other breathe again. And as they stood together watching the lanterns float into the night sky, it was clear that their future held something they never expected. Peace. If this story touched your heart, please support the channel. Your engagement truly helps us bring more real, powerful stories to life. Backhand index pointing right special request. Comment your thoughts below. Your words mean more than you know.